Hey, thank you. So let's look at our housekeeping and things you need to know when we get started. Nothing too out of the ordinary today. Please put your questions in the chat. It's going to be open. While there's a chance it may be off for short periods of time, it will be open for at least most of the webinar without too much interruption. 1 hour ACVREP credit, as you know. Closed captioning is available, so please take advantage of that if that will assist you. Joining us today, if you've been in any of our Code Jumper webinars, you're familiar with Robin Lowell, Senior Manager Accessibility for I2E. Has played a large role in getting people used to Code Jumper, understanding what it is and how it works. And so she'll be doing more of that for us today. Let's talk about some challenges that we'll be facing or that you may be facing right now. Betsy Ann?
Absolutely. So some challenges that you might find in the classroom or in any opportunity you're working with students is that computer science is one of the fastest growing fields in America and really in the world. And we know that it's important for students to get interested in coding at an early age. That not only can encourage them to pursue STEM, but can also grow confidence in the fields of math, science, engineering, technology. And confidence in the classroom is very important, especially for young women and other marginalized communities. Computer science has been really inaccessible to a lot of students, especially those who are blind or low vision. And so the opportunity to learn coding has often been very challenging for some students. And finally, computer science and STEM continues to be limited to certain demographics. We've continued to see certain people be able to really advance in the field of computer science. So it's time to expand the field, and that's why we're here today. Back to you, Paul.
All right, before we let Robin start the presentation, let's go over our learning objectives today. So we're going to learn 3 skills students can attain by learning coding. We'll understand the importance of introducing coding to students at a young age and identify 2 ways to get started teaching Code Jumper to your students. And finally, we'll look at the impact of Grace Hopper and Katherine Johnson's contributions to the field of computer science. And Robin?
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to take over sharing and let's see. There we go. Technology. Yes. I'm going to go to screen 2 and share. All right, fantastic. Okay, well, I am so excited to be here and talking with all of you about computer science, and especially from the lens of the impact computer science education has on girls and women. One thing that I think is really important to think about is we all have to start someplace. So on the screen right now, I have a slide that says we all have to start at the beginning, and then it says at an angle, hello world. So that was the first thing that went out there on the internet, was that just 2 words that Bill Gates put up there, hello world. And I think it's really important to think about that, how we as women and as teachers and thinking about our students who are blind and low vision is that we all have to start somewhere. And for many of us, the idea of helping our students code is beyond our abilities. Like, I am not a computer scientist. I am not a math person. I am not a science person. How am I going to do this? But if we kind of change that internal dialogue about that of I'm going to learn alongside my kids and I can do this, I think we're going to do a much better job at modeling all of these great skills for all of our students, especially our young women from starting in kindergarten and even preschool. So up on the screen, I have a slide And I want to talk about the role of women in computer science from a historical perspective. So I have the photograph of two very important computer scientists up on the screen. We have Katherine Johnson and we have Rear Admiral Grace Hopper. And these are two very pioneering women, not only because they were women in the field, but because they changed the face of computer science for multiple reasons. So let's start off by talking about Katherine Johnson. So Katherine Johnson, if anybody has seen the film Hidden Figures, is a crucial, critical, super important woman when it comes to our space program, when it comes to NASA. She was a computer. I mean, she was a computer. So what their job was, is they did all of the mathematical computations that we now all do using our computers, but they did them by hand with a pencil and with a hand calculator, but they did them by hand. And looking at Katherine Johnson, so she was born in 1918 and lived to be 101 years old, which is kind of ironic because so did Grace Hopper, lived to be 101 years old. So for her, getting into the field of STEM, computer science, it was not easy. She had a lot of strikes against her to start with of why she couldn't break into the field. She was a woman and she was African American. So there were not a lot of opportunities that were afforded her as a young woman to get into this field. But she started out loving mathematics as a child. And luckily her family really encouraged this behavior and really encouraged these skills of her limited educational opportunities. She graduated from college at the age of 18. So not at high school, but in college at the age of 18. And then she went to work in 1952, like I said, as a computer when NASA was formed at the beginning. And so she performed calculations that sent the astronauts into space. And off the top of my head, I can't even remember which astronaut it was. It was there, oh, that was gone. But said, we'll do the launch if Katherine Johnson says it's correct. So he was more confident with her calculations over the computer. And and that says a lot, but it wasn't easy to get there. You know, if you've watched the movie, even the bathroom, they had to find a separate bathroom because of segregation, but also being, having to struggle and constantly proving themselves that they did a good job because they were women. In my experience, I actually have my bachelor's degree is in fisheries biology. I was a humpback whale researcher before I became a teacher. The building that I went to college in, the School of Fisheries, the women's bathroom was in the weirdest spot possible. And it's like, why is it there? Because when they built the building, women were not allowed in the field. So there was no thought that women should even be in this field. And if you look at the researchers in different fields in science, in marine biology, all of my coworkers were all women. And so there's a lot of changes that have happened, but we need to continue these changes. And we need to continue to encourage all of our young women from, early ages on, that yes, that they can. And we'll talk more about the idea of yes, you can later on in terms of Code Jumper. And one thing I love that Katherine Johnson said was that, the women computers were all there, but she wanted to know more. She wanted to know why. And she kept asking questions and pushing. And so she got further and further. Up on the screen, there's a photograph of Katherine Johnson, and her daughter has found this quote that says, "I walked into the library and here's the front page of the Pittsburgh Courier in March of 1962. They were giving her credit. This lady mathematician at NASA who helped get the man to the moon." So frequently, and the information wasn't out there. There wasn't celebration or front page news of women scientists. And so we need to be showing our young girls, we need to be showing our young women how important all of these pioneers are throughout history when it comes to science and mathematics and computers. That yes, women have been involved from the very beginning, and it's incredibly important that we continue that legacy and help these women the recognition that they deserve. And Katherine Johnson herself said, "Do your best at all times. That's the best you can do." And for me, that quote is really important. Going back to what I initially said, was that thinking about our ability to help our students learn coding when that's not our area of expertise, but that's the best you can do. You dive in and you really dig in deep and you learn about the coding alongside your students, and you learn what it's all about, because do your best all the time, and you will get where you want to be. And we need to instill that in our kids at all ages as well. So that's Katherine Johnson. And now we have Rear Admiral Grace Hopper. So
Before we get to her, can we throw in our poll question?
I'm so excited. Thank you.
No problem. Absolutely. So this is your chance to throw anything in the chat that you want to ask or any comments you want to make, but let's also get to this poll question. Katherine Johnson's life and work inspired a book and movie titled what? The Space Race, Hidden Figures, or Women of NASA? Katherine Johnson's life and work inspired a book and movie titled what? The Space Race, Hidden Figures, or Women of NASA? So feel free to, if you have any questions for Robin now, you can throw those in the chat as you complete the poll. Otherwise, we'll give you a moment or so to answer that question before Robin goes and talks to us about Grace Hopper.
Awesome. Thank you. And Margarita said John Glenn. Yes, of course it's John Glenn, who was relying on Katherine Johnson to make the mathematical computations. Sometimes words just escape.
As you're voting, remember that chat is open. It'll be open now. It'll be open through most of our presentation here today. You can drop not only questions, but if you have a comment, or especially as we near the end, any thoughts about teaching computer coding, please share them with our audience today. What we have found with these webinars is that we're really building a community of learners, and we're able to share ideas not only from the presenter to our audience, but from our audience to our presenter and to their fellow audience members. So please drop any thoughts and ideas in the chat. All right, so about 64% have completed this check-in poll about Katherine Johnson. So I'm going to go ahead and close it, and we'll reveal your responses. So for the question, Katherine Johnson's life and work inspired a book and movie titled which of the following? The Space Race, Hidden Figures, or Women of NASA? 93% of our respondents said Hidden Figures. Robin, I'm going to go back to you. What was the correct answer?
The correct answer was Hidden Figures. And I would encourage everyone to read the book or watch the movies. It's really very inspirational and a great movie to show all of our young women.
All right.
Okay, are we ready for the next one? So another woman who I just have the utmost respect and so much admiration for is Rear Admiral Grace Hopper. So Grace Hopper, she's Rear Admiral. She was the second woman to ever have the rank of Rear Admiral. And she too was born in New York City in 1906. And so again, there was not a lot of opportunity afforded to her in the world of mathematics and science. But luckily, she had a very math-minded mother who encouraged her to participate and to learn as much mathematics as she could. But she was stopped at geometry and trigonometry. She was not allowed to go any further based on the educational system at the time. sorry, that was her mother. Her mother was not allowed to go past geometry and trigonometry. So she encouraged her daughter to do what she could not do. So Grace Hopper went to Vassar College, and she got degrees, plural, in math and physics. And then while she was teaching at Vassar, she was also attending Yale University, and where she got a master's degree in mathematics in 1930. So she continued to work there and earned her PhD in mathematics in 1934, becoming one of the very first women to earn a PhD and in all things mathematics. So then when World War II was happening, she was recruited. At first they said, no, you need to stay and teach mathematics. But her knowledge was so critical that they pulled her into the Navy to work on the Mark I, which is a gigantic room-filled computer, and worked on that with the team as the only woman on the team. So the Mark I took up an entire room, and in computer science, there's the term debugging, and that actually came from Grace Hopper because they found a moth inside of a computer, and which at that time, a lot of the computers actually had tape, which was paper. You know, the moth was causing problems and creating errors. So that's where the term debugging came from, because when you fix errors, in this case, they had to remove the moth. And so she continued to teach after the war, and she stayed in the Navy. She retired from the Navy. She went back to the Navy and continued her work in computer science. Up on the screen, I have a photo of Grace Hopper in her later years, standing at her desk with her 1980s version of a computer monitor. It was rather large, with all of her awards and information behind her on the walls. One of a great quote that about an award she won. So Admiral Hopper, a senior consultant at the Digital Equipment Corporation, is the first woman to receive America's highest technology award as an individual. And that's important, that as an individual, they recognize this individual, this woman's work in technology. And so the award recognizes her as a computer pioneer who spent half a century helping keep America on the leading edge of high technology. And there is Grace Hopper. I mean, every year I was doing all this research, and I found myself going down these rabbit holes of the Grace Hopper. And Margarita, thank you for putting that up there. There's the annual Grace Hopper Celebration of Women in Computing Conference. And I actually have a quote from the conference later on. And it's this opportunity for women scientists and computer scientists to get together and share their experiences and celebrate one another and the legacy of Grace Hopper. And how important women are to the field of computer science. So the quote that I found came from the conference was, "Technology works best without barriers. Let's keep on working to make this possible for us." So this was a participant, her name was Chelsea Galvez, and she went to the University of Washington, which is where I went as well. Looking at this quote, and I'd love participants to put their thoughts in the chat about this quote, like all the different places that apply, thinking about all of our young women in school, thinking about our students who are blind and low vision, and seeing the impact of this quote, "Technology works best without barriers." How often do we need to help all of our young women, all of our students who are low vision and visually impaired, be able to access the technology they need and be part of the process of creating it? You know, always with us, not for us, is one of my favorite quotes. And I think it's critical. And Antonio says, one of the difficulties I faced to fully integrate has been to find a fully accessible coding environment. Absolutely. And that is one of the biggest areas is having that accessible coding environment. And that's what we're trying to change, starting with CodeJumper, because the younger we get our kids in there, the more time they have to think about what an accessible coding environment looks like. And they can be the next generation to really create an experience that allows all of our brilliant minds to be able to access, to be able to work and create technology that we need. So I got some statistics, and so this is from the National Science Foundation. So the data came out in 2019, which means it's from a few years before that. So on the screen, I have, it's a chart, so I'll just read the numbers. And these are computer science degrees awarded to women, and not with the other lens of disability, but just women. So if we look at the years, so in 1997, a bachelor's degree was 27.2% of the degrees were awarded to women. In 2006, 20.7 were awarded to women. So we're going down, we're going the wrong direction. And in 2016, only 18.7% of the computer science degrees were awarded to women. We're not going the right direction. We need to create more experiences, more opportunities for our young women to be able to go into the STEM field and help them understand that, yes, I can do this. Interestingly, the most degrees that were awarded in computer science are master's degrees, whereas 30% of master's degrees in computer science, 30.8 are women, and that was in 2016. So we see that master's degrees are increasing, but we need to start them out. Again, this goes back to why CodeJumper is so critically important, that helping kids understand at an early age that yes, they can do this, they should do this, and that they are capable and they are desperately needed. So now let's look at that from the lens of women with disability. So the employment rate in computer science for women with disabilities is 9.4%. That is extremely low. But if we go back to the slide before, where we have 18.7% of those degrees are being awarded to women, but then only 9.4% of those are being employed for a woman with a disability. So that means we need to do better, and we need to start changing the conversation for our young women with disabilities and start creating a mindset of, yes, I can. So now let's talk about why coding is important. So this is a little bit of switching gears. So why do we even
Can we go ahead and throw this last question in here?
I think that one goes after the slide.
After the slide? Okay.
Yeah, after the slide. Yes.
Good.
Why is coding important? It teaches so many skills beyond just creating a code. We have computational thinking, problem-solving skills, resiliency, creativity, collaboration, communication, and as we see, there's a lack of skills in the industry. So we need to be working with all of our young women to help them create these skills and then be able to be employable in the area. So computational thinking is really thinking about, did we miss the, oh, you know what? We did, you're right. I'm sorry, Paul. I missed the one for, sorry, that's my fault, for Grace Hopper.
We can throw them both up there.
Okay, so now everybody has to remember a little further back and oh no. So it's an extra challenge.
Yeah, we can throw them both up there.
So all right.
So let me just, one more thing for computational thinking. So thinking about that. So what is computational thinking? It's really the problem-solving methods and the mindset of problem solving and all the skills that we teach around that. So it's thinking about the problem, it's breaking it down into manageable sizes and then solving it. And I think that's something that we can do in lifelong, and we can do it in so many other areas outside of computer science. So this idea of computational thinking is something we do all the time with our students. And if we look at it from the lens of computer science, I think a lot of our students will actually be able to go, oh, I see why I need to do this now. So these are some reasons why coding is important. Okay, so I just blew through the poll question because I just got a little too excited. So Paul and Betsy Ann, should we throw those up there?
Let's do it. Let's launch the Grace Hopper question just to make sure everybody was paying attention.
Exactly. Let's do that. So Grace Hopper served in what branch of the United States Armed Forces? Was it the Army, the Marine Corps, the Navy, the Air Force, the Space Force, the Coast Guard, or the National Guard? Grace Hopper served in what branch of the Armed Forces? The Army, the Marine Corps, the Navy, the Air Force, the Space Force, the Coast Guard, or the National Guard?
Great. And for those of you who would prefer, certainly go ahead and drop your answer in the chat. You can answer the poll or in the chat. So thank you guys for participating, checking in on our knowledge of Grace Hopper. And feel free while we're taking this poll to drop any questions in the chat that you have for Robin, any topics you'd like to explore today. We're also always looking for future opportunities to talk about Code Jumper. So if there's something you're curious about, share it with us in the chat, and we might be able to create a webinar in the future that really directly addresses your question or concern. So we've had about 52% vote in our poll. I'll give you just another moment or two to answer the poll question or drop your answer in the chat. All right. So with 52% having voted, the question, Grace Hopper served in what branch of the United States Armed Forces? Your options were Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, Space Force, Coast Guard, and National Guard. So 5% said Marine Corps, 5% said Air Force, 9% said Space Force, and 82% said Navy. Robin, what was the correct answer?
Rear Admiral Grace Hopper was in the Navy.
Absolutely. So thank you guys for checking in with that poll. And we'll give it back to you, Robin.
Okay, so before we throw up the next poll question, which is coming up in about 30 seconds, I just wanted to just reiterate, about why coding is important. So thinking about these different areas, computational thinking, problem-solving skills, resiliency, creativity, collaboration, communication, lack of skills in the industry. Before we get to our poll question, the other question I want you to think about and take away from this is, what are other areas you see is important as far as academic, life skills, expanded core curriculum, where you could be using these with your students? So all these different areas of coding, computational thinking, so on, are things that are a good takeaway to practice in your everyday teaching and learning and just life. So Paul, let's get to that last poll question we have about why coding is important.
All right. Thank you. Coding can address many skills. Check all that apply. Now, these are only a few, of course. As Robin said, there are many more that we could add, but these are just a few. So check all that apply of the following four: computational thinking, problem-solving skills, collaboration/communication, or critical literacy. So check all of those that apply. Coding can address many skills: computational thinking, problem-solving skills, collaboration, communication, or critical literacy. And you can, as someone just did, you can put your answers in the chat if you can't access the poll or it's easier. But we'd like to know which of those coding can solve.
And if there are other skills you'd like to add on, maybe some skills that Robin mentioned or skills that you're thinking about when working with your students on coding, you can drop those in the chat as well. So thank you guys for taking this final poll question, just a good check-in to see where we are. The question was, coding can address many skills. Check all that apply. And there were 4 options: computational thinking, problem solving skills, collaboration, communication, and critical literacy. So 100% said computational thinking is a skill learned from coding. 96% said problem solving. 88% said collaboration and communication. And finally, 65% said critical literacy. Now, Robin, can you tell us which of those answers are correct?
The correct answers are computational thinking, problem-solving skills, collaboration and communication. Critical literacy is not one of the computer science coding areas that's been found to be really important. But you can take these skills and then you can look at writing from a critical lens, for sure. So those first 3 were our correct answers.
All right, thank you so much. And we can go back to sharing your PowerPoint, Robin.
All right. Yes. All right, so I'm going to share. And this time I am going to share my sound. Okay, so moving forward, so you've heard me mention multiple times this idea of yes, I can. And a couple of years ago now, I was in a kindergarten classroom where we were using, it was just a general ed kindergarten classroom, and we were using CodeJumper with these kindergartners, and the teacher threw up this picture on the board and the students all followed along in this little mantra, and it was, yes, I can code. And all these little 6-year-olds were learning from the time that they were in kindergarten that yes, I can. And why is this idea of yes, I can from early age so critical and so important? Is because I think it really kind of dawned on me when I was talking with a computer, he was a coder and at an organization in Florida, and he said, had I had opportunities like CodeJumper as a little kid, I would have learned earlier in life that coding is my thing, that I can do this. And it's so much easier thinking about mindset, that computational mindset of problem solving, that if we're teaching our kids, yes, you can from an early age, it's so much more effective than going, you can kind of do this. And the same thing is going, yeah, this is really for boys, the girls don't do this, and you can't do this if you're blind or if you're low vision. No, we need to change this mindset to really being, yes, you can, because we have tools and resources and processes that'll allow you to do this. Because even if kids can start coding in middle school, even if there's opportunities later on, in the back of your mind, you're still saying to yourself, I can't do this because I couldn't before. What makes me think I can do it now? And we see that not only for students with disabilities, but so frequently just our social construct is, it's a novelty to have a woman like Grace Hopper or Katherine Johnson, but we need to change that mindset, and we need to stand in front of our kids and in front of our classes and just be like, yes, you all can, regardless of your ability level, regardless of your gender, that yes, I can do this. And so CodeJumper is, I think, one way that we are breaking through that glass ceiling of not only disability, but giving opportunities for everyone in the classroom to experience coding at a young age in a different way. So, and I was thinking this morning, so I wanted to add this in about like what else is out there. There's opportunities for women, young women and girls to learn about coding. Girls Who Code, code.org has information out there, and then Microsoft has courses about, you know, girls in STEM, closing the STEM gap, which are fantastic. But the layer that we still need to get through is, you know, they're great that they're for these young women, but we need to make sure they're accessible, because they may not all be accessible for all of our students. So there's a lot more work to be done to raise awareness, to create materials and programs to ensure that all of our students can access coding in the way that they need to, regardless of gender or ability level. And so, you know, thinking about that, we've talked a lot about, well, how do, you know, what's the importance of women in coding? What is the history of it? And now how do I get started as a teacher who's never coded, or someone who's never coded at all? Well, these are my really, my tips for doing that is with CodeJumper. The first thing is dive in to CodeJumper and get your hands dirty. This is the whole point of CodeJumper, is it's a hands-on experience. So you need to really just get in there and try. At codejumper.com, there's lessons, we have tutorials, the Microsoft Educator Network. There's also a whole 1-hour course to get started. You get started by diving in. This is not a spectator sport. This is an opportunity for you to learn right alongside your students. And again, which goes to that model learning by doing. Learn alongside your students, and all of the curriculum that has been written at codejumper.com for this is written from the lens of, I have no idea how to do computer science. I don't know what I'm doing. So all the curriculum is very step-by-step, very, there's a lot of hand-holding and lots of extra resources to go out and explore what beginning coding looks like, so you can feel comfortable and confident teaching your kids how to code. And all these resources are great. So I'm a TVI by trade, and I'm also a marine biologist and a math teacher, and I have all these crazy jobs that I've done. I was never a coder, but I really dove in and learned about this, and I feel like just so much for the better. Just in my teaching practice, I can take all these ideas around coding and computational thinking and apply it to O&M kind of lessons, to the expanded core, to just the daily lessons and how I go about helping out my students. So the other thing is create a PLN. And now there's the Hive, which is such an amazing resource of that professional learning network. If you know another TVI that has CodeJumper, you know, take opportunities and set times to get together and work on it together. And I think that's a really great way. So I've had the opportunity to work with another teacher who started at the same time I did, and we really dove in and learned it together. And so it doesn't need to be done in a silo, nor it should be. So take the opportunity to dive in, look what's already there, and talk to other people who are using it. So those are my 4 little getting started tips for CodeJumper. The biggest one is don't be afraid of it. It's super fun. And if you make a mistake, it burps at you. So that's the biggest area of concern you might have. Betsy Ann, how are we doing on time? Do we have time for me to do a quick demo?
I think we do. We've got a little more than 15 minutes left, so let's break it out. Let's get our hands dirty and jump right on into CodeJumper.
I think we should, because this is why we're here. So I'm going to change my screen sharing. I'm going to go out of my PowerPoint, and if it will cooperate with me, come on, PowerPoint. There we go. Okay, and so I'm going to magically, up on the screen, it's already there, So I already have CodeJumper set up through the magic of television. I have the app open on my screen. So that's on the left. I don't have anything plugged into the CodeJumper hub yet. And on the right side of the screen, I have the hub plugged in, and I have a document camera showing it on the screen as well. So I have the hub, which is basically where everything begins, and it's the brains of the operation. I have a play pod, which is where we find our sounds from, a pause pod. I also have a loop pod, and I have a selection pod. But, you know, for the sake of time, I'm going to, and I have all of our plugs, which come in for our constants and whatnot. But I'm going to start by creating a program. So from the hub, I'm going to take one play pod and I'm going to plug it into the hub in thread 2. And when we hear that click, that means we know it's connected. So I'm going to change my sound set to, I think we're going to do the Frere Jacques today. That one sounds like fun. Okay, so we have one, since I plugged in one play pod, I just wrote a line of code. So the app shows it in block form, and then the physical shows it in with the pods. Okay, that's a very tired father, Frere Jacques. So I'm going to change this.
Frere Jacques.
Okay, that sounds better. So we're going to build the song Frere Jacques. So to the end of the first play pod, I'm going to insert the chord. Okay, and I'm going to write, so that writes the second line of code. So we know the song is Frere Jacques, Frere Jacques. So I'm going to turn the sound.
Sonne le mattina, ding dang dong, Frere Jacques.
Okay, and then I'm going to add in, so we have Frere Jacques, another play pod, click. I'm going to turn.
Dormez-vous, sonne le ding dang, Frere, dormez-vous.
Okay, there we have Dormez-vous. That's the second one. I'm going to plug in another play pod. Keep turning it and keep
ding dang dong, Frere, dormez-vous.
Okay, so now I'm on my 5th play pod, plugging it in, and turn my sound dial.
Sonne le mattina.
Okay, then I'm going to add in one more play pod, and
Dormez-vous. Sonne le mattina, Frere ding dang, sonne le mattina.
Last one, I'm going to add in. Ding. So on the desk right now, I have basically a big long snake. I always think of it as like a train with all the cars. So the hub is the engine, and each one of the play pods is like the next train car. Okay, so I've created my my program. I have the hub, and then I have 7 play pods. So now I want to hear my program and see if it's correct.
Ding dang dong, Frere.
Here we go.
Frere Jacques, Frere Jacques, dormez-vous, dormez-vous, sonne le mattina, Frere Jacques.
Ding dang dong.
I got a little bit tired there at the end, but there was a mistake in there, because at the end we have Sonne le mattina, and then it says Frere Jacques again. So what that tells me is that we need to debug this. So remember, we learned earlier that Grace Hopper had coined the term debugging. So how do we know where the error is? So as I was listening to the program, I was touching each one of the play pods. So I figured out, oh, when I got to Frere Jacques again, that was in pod number 6. So I left my hand on that. I'm like, okay, so I need to figure that one out. So it's Sonne le mattina, and then it goes back to Frere Jacques. So I'm going to turn it back to Sonny Le Mattina.
Dormez-vous, sonnez
There
le
we go.
matin.
Okay, so now we can listen to it again and we will know that it's correct. But this time we need to wake him up a little bit. It was a little slow. So I'm going to turn all of the speeds to 1
Frère Jacques, Frère Jacques, dormez-vous, dormez-vous, sonnez le matin, sonnez le matin. Ding dang dong, ding dang dong.
All right, so now I'm going to press play and trace the code again and see if I'm correct.
Frère Jacques, Frère Jacques, dormez-vous, dormez-vous, sonnez le matin, sonnez le matin, ding dang dong.
All right, we did it. We just created an entire program that is not only visual, it's tactile, it's auditory. So we have all these senses being used to create the program. And so those are just the play pods. And then we can also create things using if-else statements. We can use loops where we tell you how many times, and mathematically it's exponential of how many sounds you can get. If it's a loop inside of a loop, it's pretty amazing. And other things that are really great about the way the CodeJumper program is set up is you can add in your own sound sets. So you can make it very relevant to your students. We, when we were in the kindergarten class, the kids were reading the story of Grace Hopper. So what we decided to do is have the kids record their own sounds, and they were, you know, and they were learning about the beginning, the middle, and the end of a story. So our kids were, they recorded what the beginning of the sound was. They recorded 2 middles of the sounds, and then they recorded the end of the story. So they had their story of Grace Hopper, and what they were able to do was then program it and then listen to it. And they had to debug it because it wasn't always correct. So there was all that collaboration, because they had to create the sounds themselves. They had to do the computational thinking. How are we going to break down the story so that we can just do a sentence about the beginning, the 2 middle sections, and the end? So all those ideas about coding that we were able to apply using their English and their reading lessons, that we were able to do on CodeJumper, and it helped them really understand. And so for those students who are really tactile, they were creating it in a very tactile way. So the more often we can do multimodal learning, the better. And you can use CodeJumper for pretty much any subject. Really, we've come up with probability games and math and all these amazing ways to use CodeJumper. There's a new puzzle book coming out that will have all these puzzles to be able to do on CodeJumper independently. Those are in the works right now. I've even used CodeJumper with a middle schooler who was having a hard time with Python because it was text-based and there was parentheses all over the place when they were learning about loops. So what I did was we built it in CodeJumper, and just to be able to understand those concepts, because all the concepts that you learn in CodeJumper are the same ones that you would learn in basic coding if it was block-based or if it was text-based. So there's a lot of opportunity to really use CodeJumper beyond just what's there. There's so much opportunity for creativity and personalization in the coding experience. And let's see. Yes, go ahead.
Robin, we had a question come in.
Sure.
How do you and how does a blind student change the code? So can you talk a little bit more about the relationship between the pods and the app?
Yes. Okay. So when you plug in a pod, so the play pod has on top of it, so the pod is the shape of, like, I would say a computer mouse. It has a, I'm going to grab one so it's easier to see. So we have the basically the shape of a computer mouse with a cord coming out of one end, and it's you know, like a headphone jack type cord. The opposite side of that has a jack where you would plug it in, and on the top of the pod are 2 dials to change the sound. So the sound dial is a short, flat, donut-shaped one. And when you turn that, so I'll go ahead and turn it on my program. So every time you turn the dial, then it changes it to another sound in the sound set. And so the play pod has 2 dials on it. One's short and round, which is the sound. The other one's tall and ridged. And that one is the speed. So you notice I turn the speed. So when you plug in this basically computer mouse shaped pod into the hub, which then connects to the app, and that so via Bluetooth. So you plug your pod in, and that writes that line of code where then you can turn the dial to choose the sound in the sound set. So the app, of course, can completely be controlled by your mouse. And for each thread, because you write code in threads, and the hub has 4 different threads that you can put a different sound set. In the app, you can change your sound set. And there are lots of different sound sets. Like we chose Frere Jacques. There's one that's an explosion that's really fun. And you can have, there's a story, Jingle Bells, Make New Friends. There's all these different sound sets that are available, plus the ones you can add. So you just go into the app and you just tab over until you hear thread, select that, and then you can change your sound set from there. And then when you plug in your pods, whether it's a play pod, pause, or the loop, the play pod is the one that will play the sound. And then you plug that one in and change it from the dial on the play pod. So Antonio, does that help? It's an abstract concept when it's not in front of you. Great, good. Antonio says that, yes, that makes sense. So yeah, there's so many great things to do with CodeJumper. And even if you do not have a kit, go and explore the website, because there's a lot of great information on basic coding. There's a lot of unplugged lessons that you can go through that you don't need CodeJumper for, but that teaches the concepts that have already been created for students who are blind and low vision. So Betsy Ann put the CodeJumper website address in the chat. So just go explore and see what you can find out about coding that you don't know, because there's a lot there. So I'm so excited that everybody was here today, and we really talked about the role of women in coding and really encouraging all of our young women and girls from early ages on that, yes, I can code. I think that's a mantra that that we need to help a lot of our students and all of our kids realize, that not only around coding, but yes, I can applies to every aspect of their lives. So Betsy Ann, I'm gonna turn it back over to you.
Well, thanks so much, Robin, for being with us today and sharing with us some of these really incredible lessons for CodeJumper. Robin is totally correct. Even if you don't have a CodeJumper in front of you, check out that website. It's got some really great lessons, beginner lessons and more advanced lessons that can show you what the power of coding can do for your students. So Nikki, if we could jump to the discovery slide, which should be the next slide. We love to wrap up our webinars with just reviewing the lessons that we've learned. So CodeJumper is an accessible tool for all students. As Robin was pointing out, it has not only an app on your computer, but physical pieces, the hub and all of the pods, so students can physically create block code, which is essentially instructions that you're giving to a computer to complete a certain task. In Robin's example, singing Frere Jacques. I find physical learning to be such an incredible way to introduce students to really high level concepts like coding. You are writing a list of instructions, and you can do it very basic, or you can make it more and more complex as your students grow to understand coding. And it's a really incredible way to have your hands-on learning adapt to such a high technical concept. I love the idea of pairing historic content like lessons about Katherine Johnson and Grace Hopper with learning coding. Because one thing I've been reflecting on a lot is this idea of if you can't see it, you can't be it. It's hard to imagine a career for yourself in coding if you can't imagine someone who looks like you or shares some of your identities being in that field, especially a field like computer science and coding. So to introduce that idea of, yes, I can code, introduce leaders in the field who share similar characteristics with your students. And together we can diversify the field of computer science and STEM. It's a growing field, and it's a field with lots of excitement behind it. So let's make sure not only students really of all types, sizes, and abilities can join this really exciting field. So Paul, I'm going to hand it over to you to wrap up today and tell us just a little bit more about CodeJumper.
Okay, and also want to make mention of the fact that CodeJumper is on quota. You can purchase it on quota or not on quota. Yep. Thank you for putting that up there. $9.99 on quota price, $7.95 on quota. There's also now the Android app for CodeJumper, so you can use it on your Matt Connect or on a Chromebook. And obviously, you've seen today just some of the very beginning things, but there's so many other pods, so many more things you can do, a whole curriculum available to you to look at and learn from. So please check that out. And with that brand new app is out there. So you can use it on the Matt Connect and you can use it on the Chromebook, and more stuff to come. And if you have any additional things that come up even after this webinar, questions about CodeJumper, things you'd like to see demonstrated, we're going to continue in a series of webinars on CodeJumper in the next several months. So we'll do our best to kind of show you some of the lessons and how some of those work, and try to answer as many questions as we can so that this becomes something that you have a greater and better understanding of. So if we have any more questions, we'll try to get to those. Otherwise, we appreciate you coming in and joining us today and getting an idea of how it works.
And feel free to drop questions in the chat. Robin, we did have one come in. Can the app be used on Braille Note?
I don't think at this point yet, no. It's only on the Windows 10 device and now Android. But like the Mac Connect and a Chromebook, it'll work on as well.
Actually, Braille Note is an Android device. So that's makes me wonder if you can or not.
No. I can weigh in. This is Sully. CodeJumper is officially something that can be used on the Braille Note Touch as of just maybe about a month ago. So yes, you would be able to pull down the CodeJumper app from the Google Play Store and be able to use it with your Braille Note Touch.
Oh, fantastic. That's new. Oh, I'm super excited about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just released in the last month. Fantastic. It's got Android capabilities. Great. Any other questions today? And as Paul said, we are going to be having recurring webinars on CodeJumper in the next few months. We will be adding some more specific lessons that you can find on codejumper.com. We're going to be looking closely into those. So thank you, guys.
Robin, what are your thoughts about using CodeJumper like in an after school or summer program, or like a library or something like that?
I think it's a fantastic idea because CodeJumper can be used in so many ways. It can be used in a one-to-one like pull-out experience, but also it's the opportunity to have it like as a station. So from like an after-school coding program, it's something that is great for every student that attends, because it's another way to engage in coding that's beyond just the screen. So I honestly think it should be, if you can, like if I had a magic wand, I would make sure it's included in every after school coding program and library, because it's an opportunity to go and explore coding that you can do a lot of it independently. There's a lot of opportunity to just literally sit and play and ideate and figure it out and use those computational thinking skills in any setting, any setting.
And I know there's a question that has popped into the chat, but I wanted to ask, so you have block coding and text-based coding. Oftentimes students start with block coding. Any particular reason why they start with block coding and not just go to text-based coding?
Yeah, so text-based coding is very, well, it's text heavy. You have to understand what things represent. So you have parentheses, you can have like 4 sets of parentheses inside, which means a loop. You have to know it was so jargon heavy. Whereas block-based coding, this specific shape means move forward, and you basically fit it together like a puzzle versus having to write your own code. It's the difference between putting a puzzle together and writing your own story. It's much easier to slot them together than figure it out start to finish. And one teeny tiny error, a period, a comma, a parentheses, will not make the code run. So block is just a much more, it's like training wheels.
Okay, all right. There's a question here about how big and how heavy is the packaging?
Oh, I have taken CodeJumper all across the United States as a carry-on item. And I always feel like I need to have like the old handcuff on the case and on my wrist because it looks like a suitcase you'd be carrying around with $1 million in there. It's not, it's the size of a briefcase and it's quite light because the pods are not heavy at all. It is completely manageable to transport from school to school, even if you're not a driver. And like I said, I've taken it all over the United States without having a car to transport in. It's just literally a suit, like a briefcase size case.
And the specs say it's just 8 pounds. All of the combined package in the briefcase is just 8 pounds. So it's very easy to transport, and it's full of like a foam packaging that has slots for each of the pods, the hubs, everything to go in, so it doesn't shuffle around as you're taking it from one place to the next. So the people have really thought about how this product can be transported.
Because it does get put away, it should be put away after you're done with it every single time. So it's very quick and easy to get it put back.
Great. Did we miss any questions? I think we got them all. Excellent.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Well, this was great. We really appreciate your help. Very, very eye-opening and getting rolling with understanding the fundamentals. So and putting into context. So thank you.
Absolutely. It was great.
Great job,
Yes,
everybody.
thank you, Robin.
Yes, thanks everyone.
And thank you, audience, for joining us today. And as always, thanks to ACS Captions for giving us a really great service.